general picture of what the monitoring requirements imposed on licensed sponsors actually mean, and what I've kind of come across. So the facts are now that in order to bring in international students or international academics, generally non-EU and non-UK individuals into the UK, institutions, be they educational providers or just generally businesses, have to be licensed sponsors. Correct me if I'm wrong at any point, by the way. As licensed sponsors, these entities then have duties, and they become responsible for the individuals that they bring into the country. So they have to ensure that those individuals actually comply with the rights that they have within the parameters of their visas. And along those monitoring duties, universities, for example, have to make sure that students come regularly, that they're not bogus, that they're not actually abusing the Tier 4 entry route to actually just be in the country. So they have to regularly attend. Now, there traditionally is a way to kind of monitor attendance of students for pastoral duties, just to make sure that students are getting along with university life and that they're just handling the whole experience correctly. But what the monitoring duties actually do is shift attendance monitoring from a pastoral, from just a point of view of care and making sure that students are okay, to something where they're actually almost becoming a liability for the university, because the university could lose its license potentially, or could be downgraded. And if the university loses its license, it then no longer has the right to bring in international students. So those students now are not being monitored because the institution wants to make sure that they are being taken care of and that they're keeping up with the whole experience of university. But they're being monitored because for the university and for the staff who are supposed to carry out those monitoring duties, there is a risk involved. Now that is a radical shift of the relationship between universities and students. Now, the monitoring duties obviously don't only apply to students, they apply to the staff, which is non-EEA and non-UK. So the staff itself is also being monitored because they're also being considered as licensed, sponsored immigrants. So this also applies to academics, this also applies to admin staff. This basically applies to all non-EEA, non-UK individuals. And given the figures that the Universities UK produced, we're talking about roughly 230,000 students per year within higher academia. And international staff represent roughly 10.5% of overall staff. So we're literally talking about hundreds of thousands of people who are being monitored, on whom those monitoring duties actually focus. One of the things that I have come to find, well, two important things, is the reason why there isn't a more general front building up against those monitoring duties is because the UKBA and the Home Office didn't actually come along, they didn't impose the duties along with a process, like a generalist process about how the monitoring duties should be carried out. So what we truly have is solutions that are found in every single case of every single institution, and sometimes each department within the institution devises their own situations. So some have a more lax attitude, some are a lot more, some are zealous, overzealous. So basically that's why we have this very fragmented picture. We don't have the same way of carrying out those duties across the board. And that makes it very difficult for the people who are supposed to carry out those monitoring duties to basically unite, because they don't face the same situation. They don't face the same situation in terms of how they carry out the duties. It's not always the same kind of staff that carry out the duties. Sometimes it's academics, sometimes it's the administrative staff. And in some situations, it's an entirely computerized solution that has been used. So basically, it's very hard for people to realize that they're all facing the same situation, that they're all dealing with the same issue of how those monitoring duties, consciously or unconsciously, are radically changing the whole human environment that the university should be. It should be a university should be a place where students can confidently go to their tutors and tell them that they're facing issues. This is supposedly a relationship of trust. Now, because of the monitoring duties, this is being skewed. But obviously, this is not apparent to everyone because we have such a fragmented picture. So one of the things that I would like people to be aware of is that one of the ways that we will have a strong campaign is if every single one of us, if we're international students, go to your tutors, go to your administrative staff, and highlight the fact that this is very damaging to you and your relationship and to your whole experience, because a lot of people within academia are not aware of the actual monitoring requirements because it's such a fragmented picture. So it's also individually our responsibility, all of us, to make the whole body that makes up academia aware of what is actually happening. This is still not very much the case. So, and as people who are active in academia, it would be wonderful if everybody could go and find out exactly how the duties are being carried out in the university, talk about it amongst colleagues, so we can actually know. Because as somebody this morning said, why all these surveillance, well, this overwhelming surveillance mentality works is because we're all being atomized. And that makes it possible for those things to actually be implemented. So find out how it works, where you are, find out who's having issues, reporting to us, because we are in touch with institutions who are fighting this, because we are in touch with people within the House of Commons, within the House of Lords, who are not in agreement with this. So the more cases you bring to us, the better it will be. Now, one of the things that I also found is, as I said, there is a tendency to now rely on computerized solutions, and this just shows a general trend towards a privatization of this whole surveillance sector. There are quite a few businesses that have provided colleges, university, with attendance systems that basically are just plugged onto the systems of the university. And then they just completely run automatically. There is an ID card with biometric details that's attached, and that's given to international students, but in a lot of cases to all students, because the institutions don't want to run the risk of breaching equality laws, which could cost them a lot, and which could actually see them being legally sued. So this is also something that's happening, is the whole surveillance is spreading not only to the international students, but to the whole body of students, and in some cases academia. So this is a humongous market for companies such as Visual Management and many others. And it's also something that we need to have more information on. So I know that a few are running ID cards with biometrics, but I don't want to keep it hush-hush. The high management thing, because it enables them to control the whole human environment, that academia. And from what I've heard from sources that I can't cite because it would be jeopardizing to them, is it seems that what happened also in terms of the monitoring duties in the PBIS is a lot of higher management of universities were very keen to anyway control the student body and control staff, and also control the relationship that student and staff have. So they couldn't openly do it because they would have faced way too much resistance. So when the PBIS then came into existence, they just jumped onto the bandwagon to impose actually monitoring duties that way exceed the demands of the UKBA. And considering that most universities are actually highly trusted sponsors, and that highly trusted sponsors have to comply to a much less stringent level in terms of monitoring duties, we are seeing that many universities are overly zealous in their implementation of the monitoring duties. So we also have to be aware of the fact that we can't solely blame the UKVA and the Home Office for the way that this is changing academia. But it seems that it's also higher management which is very keen on having a very managerial approach to academia in general. Now academia is actually a place where normally there's a freedom of speech and there's a freedom of association, and especially in the UK, the student body and academics, exchange a lot. And all those surveillance duties and all those processes are curtailing, they're cutting back on the possibilities of all those things happening. So yeah, I'll have to wrap it up. Basically, the main concern with the surveillance duties is a lot of the welfare officers, the international students officers, now cannot conduct their job of being there to listen to students and advising them as they would have before, because any information that they are now passed on from those international students, they might have to use against them, because they might have to use it in order to protect their jobs, in order to protect the institution, and to pass it on to the UKVA. So I really, really call on everybody here to help us to have as many case studies, to find out as much information as possible about how those monitoring duties are actually being imposed in every institution, because that will make us stronger in our campaign. That will give me more material to produce reports and to actually feed to the allies that we have in the House of Commons, in the Lords, and in various institutions. And as I said, it's up to all of us to make the people that we see in our day-to-day interactions within universities aware of what's happening, because a lot of people simply don't know.
Do you want to say to send to?
Yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome to send it to me. My name is Valérie Hartwich and I work for the Manifesto Club. So if you just go onto the Manifesto Club's website, which is www.manifestoclub.com, you will find my blog where I log on a lot of things on the campaign, and there's a link where to send information to me. Thank you very much.